Hello and welcome to Ufology Explored, the show that aims to guide you through ufology with the different categories and various facets of
What is ufology? Ufology is basically the study of UFO sightings, whether they be in film, photographs, physical evidence such as imprints, burning, scorch marks, anything like that, verbal testimony. Many are proved to be nothing more than a misidentification, which most are. But that's not the only facet. The facets are there's many crop circles, UFO sightings, which is the largest one of them all, and animal mutilation, human mutilation, which isn't talked about much in the ufology UFO community for some reason. Ancient aliens or astronauts, as some call it, were they here before? Human abductions, interdimensional beings, could be, government investigations, government cover-ups, UFO hunting, and technology, and there's many more. There's many. Popular to the belief of some academics or ufologists, it's not a new subject, sorry, it is old. The Sumerians, the Egyptians, Macedonians, Greeks, Romans, Aztecs, they all mentioned flying machines. The Vimanas in Indian Veda texts from 3,000–4,000 BC, which we will cover in a later video. They knew what they were talking about. They knew what was in the skies, and you've got to remember, they didn't know what spaceships were in them days. We have the technology, we know what they are, so we can call them spaceships. They used the terminology of the day. If a disc looked like a disc, it would probably be called a flying shield, or if it was a cylinder, maybe a flying wine vessel of some sort. And that's how they did it. It's you say what you see, or as in the old pictures, you paint what you see, and that's how they did it. So yes, it's not a new subject. Mainstream media, they still don't recognise ufology as such. They laugh at you if you mention, and you get called little green men, or you're a crank, and things like that. It's just not reported sensibly in the media. Mainstream science as well doesn't really view ufology as a science. They class it as a pseudo-science, even though some of the evidence is there. They do not want to put their name to it for various reasons to them. If it's the career, which a lot of it is, you get linked with UFOs, ufology, sometimes that's your career down the Swanee. Also, I mean, there was a brilliant Mexican Air Force have brought 2 brilliant videos out. They've inspected them for 2 years, and they've come up with, they don't know what it is, but nobody else seems to want to know what it is, or perhaps they already know what it is, so they don't need to investigate, which is another thing. Ufologists, that's the people who go out and investigate or research. Investigators go out, do the footwork. I'm not an investigator, I'm a researcher. I like to do home research on the computer, internet, various things, books, magazines. I still like to feel that book in your hand, it's nice. I'll be covering some books in later videos. But yeah, they're the ones who go out, do the footwork, or get in touch with various governments, other groups, everything like that. Do a cracking job, some of them, really good. I class myself as a researcher. I use internet and books myself. But I will lead you into different sites who are very good. Some specialise in a certain area of ufology. Yep, and ufologists have varied background, ex-military, some are military, some scientists do, police, civilians like you and I, or whoever's watching it, whatever your job, if you like it, and you're into it. Anyway, on to the next segment, which is a person of interest, which is a Major Donald E Keyhoe. Hello again. Right, Major Donald E Keyhoe was born on 20th of June 1897 in America. He was a good scholar. He joined the Marines as an aviator in 1919. Unfortunately, he did have a plane crash and he was let go in 1923 on a medical discharge. He did rejoin in World War II as a aviator trainee in a training division to help the new Marine pilots come through. In between them, he did work as a writer. He did do some stories for various magazines, usually science fiction stories, but he did do some UFO books later on, one of which, Flying Saucers Are Real, a must read. I'll leave a description in below for you. That's what he is known for. Brilliant man. He worked for newspapers as well as a freelance. Some of his books are in the public domain on the internet. Go and have a look at some of them. He became interested in UFOs after 1947 with the Kenneth Arnold incident, where the term flying saucers came from. He investigated, a skeptic at first. He did investigate some other incidents, and he became a believer. And he did have friends in the Air Force, or contacts in the Air Force and the Pentagon in the US. I think he knew what he was on about. He knew. Some skeptics have said his work wasn't very good, but I suppose they would, wouldn't they? He co-founded NYCAP in the 50s. He became the president in, I think it was 1957, after the original president left due to some issues, which in another channel we'll go over NYCAP. Yeah, NYCAP was the National Investigation Committee on Aerial Phenomena. It ran. After he became president, after 12 years, he was ousted in December 1967, and 4 years later, NYCAP folded. It was one of the biggest and oldest ufology groups in the world at that time. He did do some TV shows, one of which was aired, and the audio was actually cut while he was talking. He had slightly strayed off what they had agreed to, but basically they said they actually had to cut the audio off because of security reasons. And we was on there for UFOs, and if UFOs don't exist, why would there be a security implication? I don't know. You'll have to look the facts up. So yeah, he did some TV shows. He died at the ripe old age of 91 in Newmarket, Virginia. Classed as a leader of his field in the 50s and 60s, did sterling work, and he's one of the fathers of modern ufology, and a good man, put it on the map. He did push Congress for some hearings and proper investigations. We did, obviously the Americans did do investigations. First one was probably closest to the mark. The next ones were basically debunking mechanisms, and like I said, we'll go into them in future videos. Anyway, that's it on Major Donald E Keyhoe. Great man, and I'll see you in the next segment for my thoughts, questions and quote of the day. Hello again. Quote of the day was by Mikhail Gorbachov, the last premier of the USSR. He said, and I quote, "The phenomena of UFOs does exist, and it must be treated seriously." There you go, governments and scientists, take your lead from a politician, if you can believe that. Right, thank you. Thoughts of the day. Hello, I'm back. Thoughts of the day, I've got them written down. I've got a terrible memory. Basically, consider the universe. Apparently, I think it's never ending. It's a vast. I mean, the minimum is 100 to 200 billion galaxies. Now, it's got to. People say it's got to stop somewhere. Well, where does it come? Does it hit a brick wall? And if so, what's over the other side? Is it black? Is it white? Is it blue? Is it green? We don't know. The scientists don't really know because they've never been. They can theorise like we do with ufology, but they can theorise and it's classed as okay. Anyway, our nearest star, Proxima Centauri, is just over 4 light years away. Doesn't sound much, but a light year is around 6 trillion miles, which I wouldn't like to walk it. It would take Voyager 1 travelling at 38,120 miles per hour, 73,775 years to get there. That is a long time. So what's the possibility of life in the universe? I personally think there's a strong possibility. I've done an easier one. I don't know how good it will be, but I'm sure I'll get comments. So I've used a scale of a 1% probability, and I've used the lowest estimate of stars galaxies. I've used 100 billion galaxies, of which 1% have planets, so that's 1 billion, which I'm sure 1% is very, very low, have planets. That's a billion, and 1% of those billion are in the habitable zone, which is 10 million. Of those 10 million, they have planets with basic life, microscopic bacterial life, which is 100,000. Of those 100,000, I would say they have our level of intelligence, which, well, that's up for debate, which is 1,000. And of that 1% of 1,000, they have an advanced level of intelligence, which they can travel through the stars to anywhere, which is 10. So 10 advanced levels of civilization that can travel the universe. I have the technology. Yeah, I think the quote, I mean, at the end of the day, laws of probability, we're here on this one planet, so it's there. It set the precedence. There must be others. Personally, that's what I think. It is becoming now with mainstream. Yeah, there probably is life on other planets, but 30 years ago you wouldn't have heard them saying that. They would have been laughed at. So that's my thoughts of the day. Any comments on this video? Thank you very much, and I'll see you later.